Hello, hello, hello. This is Warren Redlick. Welcome to the Sunday live stream. Thanks to the Vasa Law Firm in Sweden, all my Patreon supporters for helping the channel grow. I also want to thank the supporters on Locals who are busy in the chat right now. If you are a supporter on Locals, you can participate in the chat. This is how Locals set this up. The supporters of the Daily Lie. I also want to thank YouTube channel members, exclusive content members in particular. I'm doing this live stream on Locals, and I will put the recording on YouTube after I edit it to make sure I haven't crossed YouTube's community standards. The reason I'm here, and I'm going to talk about this later in the video, the reason I'm doing this here instead of on YouTube is because of YouTube censorship. The reason I can't do this on Patreon is because Patreon's history of censorship. Locals is a free speech platform, so I feel more comfortable talking here than I feel comfortable talking anywhere else. So that's why we're here. So let's start off with my own news. I will be going to Oregon. I made a video about how to find the next Tesla. I made this video this week that's doing really well, where I talked about how to find the next Tesla, short video, talking about we need to innovate with extreme urgency. I'm wearing the wrong t-shirt. I'm wearing the What's Outside the Simulation t-shirt. And Mark Frohmeyer, who is the CEO of Arcimoto, was tipped off by somebody else about the video, and he invited me out to Arcimoto headquarters in Eugene, Oregon, to see the factory and the new facility coming online. And I accepted the invitation, and it looks like I'm going soon, and I will be out in Oregon to see that, and I will be making videos about Arcimoto. I am skeptical about Arcimoto's prospects for a lot of reasons, but I'm also excited. I think that Mark is very sharp and very hardworking and has a really good vision, and I don't get the vision yet. So I want to see if I can get the vision, see if I can understand where he's going. So that's coming. And on the way, I'm going to stop in Salt Lake City, and I'm going to make a few videos with Ellie from Ellie in Space. We're not going to do SpaceX videos. We're going to do something different. There's no romance. Please don't get confused. Much as I might like that, that's not what it's about. We're going to make some interesting videos, and they're going to appear on my YouTube channel probably once a week for 3 to 6 weeks. We'll see how it goes. We'll see how much content we can produce. So that's coming. Let's get into Tesla news. Waypoints was finally released. Elon said, sorry it took so long. People who are regular users of Tesla Autopilot, Navigate on Autopilot, FSD Beta, wanted waypoints, which is you're going from point A to point B, and you want to stop somewhere in the middle, and Tesla's navigation software did not allow you to set a waypoint so that you could go somewhere in the middle, and they've now made that available. I don't have it in my car. I don't know why my car doesn't have it. Maybe it's going to be in my car in the next update, but I didn't get it yet. I thought it was interesting because I have FSD Beta. I have the latest FSD Beta, but I don't have the waypoints. Not sure why, not sure how to make that work. Maybe I should check again. This is a tweet from Elon. And the bottom here is a tweet from Elon. Tesla is now offering for Model S Plaid a carbon ceramic brake kit, a $20,000 option. One of the criticisms of Plaid Model S is it's not good for track driving because you need to really brake heavily, and the stock brakes don't handle track driving well. Well, track driving is not something most Model S Plaid users are going to do a lot of. Plaid buyers are going to do a lot of. So adding this feature seems like a nice plus for people who want to spend that money. Starts with this. Giga Berlin critics, Tesla critics, want another round of discussions to basically hold up production of. And my criticism here is if you are an environmentalist, if you are Greta Thunberg, if you are somebody who's a big environmentalist who wants to, protect the world from climate change, why would you be trying to slow somebody who wants to make a lot of electric vehicles that don't pollute, don't emit CO2? And if you are that person, you're somebody who goes out and protests, why aren't you protesting this? Why aren't the environmentalists protesting this? Where's Greta Thunberg protesting in Germany against these groups that are funded by Volkswagen, if you're paying attention? Why aren't they protesting this? Why aren't they encouraging Tesla to produce EVs? This is disturbing. I don't like it. I'm not happy. That happened, and then shortly thereafter, Bloomberg published an article which comes from a German publication that Tesla Giga Berlin is expected to start production in December. As many as 30,000 vehicles will be manufactured there in the first half of 2022. Final permits expected within days. Serial production will start with 1,000 cars a week and gradually increase. This is it's basically the same thing, but expecting 1,000 Model Ys a week in January. Now, I look at that and I say, wait a minute. If you're doing 1,000 Model Ys a week in January, then you should be able, there's 26 weeks in the first half of the year. So if you don't increase production at all, you'd be close to 26,000 vehicles. But if you're succeeding in ramping production, then 30,000 vehicles sounds like serious sandbagging. Because if you're doing 1,000 vehicles a week in January and you're doing 3,000 vehicles a week in June, then you'd be averaging 2,000 vehicles a week and you'd be over 50,000 vehicles for the first half of the year. So this is promising, good sign. I've also seen indications that Tesla got a final permit granted in Texas. So Giga Texas is probably going to start producing soon as well. And both factories should start delivering vehicles to customers in January, maybe. This is happening fast. This is really exciting. This is great stuff. Related to this, I'm going to go back. This is for a little bit of history here, and I don't know how hard this is to read on your screen. But back in 2018, this Twitter account, Existential Comics, was picking on Elon for taking subsidies. And Elon responded that the 4.9 billion wasn't true, that this article that trashed him was inaccurate and published by was propaganda. But even if $4.9 billion was true, Tesla's and SpaceX combined market cap at the time was $80 billion. Of course, it's a little bit higher than that now. SpaceX alone is like $100 billion valuation, and Tesla's market cap is over $1 trillion. So, where did the other 75 billion come from? People trashing Tesla over subsidies when, of course, Elon's point was the regular car companies get a lot more subsidies and the oil companies get a lot more subsidies. So this is kind of silly. The news now, apparently Tesla had applied for €1 billion, which is, I don't know the exchange rate, it's in the ballpark of $1 billion US, in battery production subsidy for Giga Berlin, and Tesla decided not to take the subsidies. They decided not to pursue the subsidies. And Elon said, we learned our lesson with the Department of Energy loan in 2010, 2011. The onerous terms exceed the value of money received. That's why we paid it back so early, despite an early repayment penalty. When you get funding from the government, it comes with strings attached. This is one of the reasons why I see the legacy automakers will not be able to compete with Tesla in the long run, because they have so many different strings attached to everything that they do. They have the unions, they have the dealerships, they have their existing bureaucracy, and whenever they get political help, there's strings attached, and all these things keep them from competing, from producing in a competitive manner, from competing effectively. So Elon figured out, hey, that's true. And I actually noticed this, for those who follow my podcar idea, someone suggested that Emmett suggested that I look into the Advanced Vehicle Technology Manufacturing Loan. It sounds like great when you look at the initial story, and then when I dove in and I actually talked with somebody from the program, it turned out it really only makes sense if you're borrowing, $100 million. And I'm not anywhere near big enough to borrow $100 million. And the cost of applying for the $100 million loan is like $2 million. So it doesn't make sense to go for a smaller loan, because if you have to, it's $2 million to apply for the loan in terms of all the regulatory hoops you have to jump through, all the lawyers you have to pay to get all the paperwork done to apply for this loan. So if you're only applying for a $10 million loan, it would be a 20% cost to apply for that loan, and it just doesn't make sense. There's all these hoops that you have to jump through, all these things, and that would require me to have a 2-passenger vehicle, and it would probably have to be street legal in the United States, all these different hurdles that I don't want to deal with. So I decided not to pursue that angle on financing my pod car. And I didn't get this from Elon, but it's interesting to see Elon saying something similar. And this is Marin also talks about Tesla doesn't take advantage of the subsidy. And Elon said it has always been Tesla's view. Can you guys see that? It has always been Tesla's view that all subsidies should be eliminated, but that must include the massive subsidies for oil and gas. And for some reason, governments don't want to do that. I think that's a little bit of sarcasm on Elon's part. I think Elon knows the reason governments don't want to do that is because the special interests in the oil and gas and legacy auto industries have a lot of influence, and unions have a lot of influence over governments, and governments serve special interests more than they serve people. They serve special interests more than they serve long-term what's good for society. Elon wanted the Biden administration to pursue a carbon tax rather than give Tesla money, rather than do tax credits for cars, for EVs. Couldn't get them to talk to him. They weren't interested. So that's the basic Tesla news. The stock is up, stock is good. For those who follow me, I don't know if you follow me on Twitter, I did buy more stock. I had an account that I realized I had access, full control over, that I sold a couple of an ETF and a mutual fund. ETF closed same day, and I went and bought 30 shares that day at $9.83 a share. And then the mutual fund shares closed the next day, and it took me a little while to get it together, but I bought another 36 shares at $1,083 a share. I think the stock is up higher than that, but I think the stock is going $5,000, $10,000, $50,000 a share. So buying at 100 versus buying at 1,000 versus buying at 900 or buying at 1,100 is irrelevant if it's going as high as I think it's going. Anyway, I bought more stock. I'm even deeper into Tesla than I was before. So that's the Tesla news. Let's move on. The plan today is I'm going to do this video where I talk about Tesla, I talk about SpaceX, and I do Q&A, and I'll do chat Q&A as well. And after an hour, I'm going to stop this live stream, and I'm going to start a second live stream for local supporters. That live stream will also be recorded, and that recording will be made available to Patreon supporters and YouTube channel exclusive content members, probably within an hour or so of finishing. Again, I have to be careful with the censorship issues. I have to make sure I don't put anything in that's going to get me in trouble with YouTube or in trouble with Patreon. I don't think, and what I'm going to talk about in part 2 is my Tesla bot model. I'm working on videos with the Tesla bot model, and I have just sort of like one piece of it that I want to talk about. That's probably going to be a half hour long. So if you're not a supporter and you want to see that right away and you want to engage in the live stream discussing it, then please become a supporter on Locals and you'll be able to watch that second live stream. If you just want to see it, and you're already a Patreon supporter, you're already a YouTube channel exclusive content member, you're going to be able to see it later today. And I just like the free speech platform that if you didn't notice when I was on YouTube doing live streams, there would be times when there would be a question in the chat and I wouldn't be comfortable answering it because it had some political angle and I was just worried that YouTube was going to demonetize me. And I was so careful and I found myself self-censoring. And they demonetized me anyway. So multiple times they're doing it to other YouTubers, and I just decided, all right, I've got a free speech platform already. I'm already doing political videos on Locals. I might as well start doing live stream videos on Locals. So the biggest news with SpaceX is they had the DART mission, which maybe I'll play that video first. This is the DART mission, the double asteroid redirect test. So NASA is sending a mission out into space to intersect with an asteroid, actually a two-body asteroid that will be getting close to Earth, and they're going to basically crash this satellite, this object, into the smaller of the two asteroids at high velocity, and see if that changes the motion of the asteroid. Now, the asteroid is not a threat to the Earth; it's not coming close to the Earth, but they can see whether they succeeded in changing its direction and changing how it moves a little bit. So, if in the future we detect an asteroid that's coming towards the Earth, this is a test to see, can we deliver a mission that can redirect an asteroid that might actually threaten Earth? And Elon talked, about not just something that might destroy all life on Earth, but what about something that was only going to destroy a continent? Well, that would still be bad. We don't want continents destroyed. We don't want all life on a continent destroyed. That could be very, very bad for humanity. So Elon thinks that's an important mission, and that's what they're doing. SpaceX is working on Starship and Super Heavy, and this is a Tesla Roddy article, which I love Tesla Roddy. Check them out. Tesla Roddy and Testmanian are two of my favorite websites to look at for news on Tesla, SpaceX. So they're putting finishing touches on Starship's orbital pad. They have a nice article where they break down a lot of the details here. It says SpaceX hasn't quite finished installing those arms. There's this on the tower. We saw when I was down at Starbase with Ellie. These arms up here will catch Super Heavy as it's falling. I believe it may also be able to catch Starship as it's falling, as it's landing. Catch it and be able to lower it down. So you can see Super Heavy is coming down. I don't know whether this is launch or landing. This looks like landing because there aren't as many rockets firing. And the arms would catch right at the grid fins. Catch it and bring it down and set it on the pad. And so we saw these arms. If you go back and look at, I think, my videos or Ellie's videos, we showed pieces of these arms that were already there at Starbase. And they are now, I believe, on the tower, but they're not fully operational yet. They're still working on them. That was part of this article. Tower arms are there. This is just describing how they're making progress. They're working on it, but it's not quite there. These arms will be used to grab, lift. These arms will be used to grab, lift, and install Super Heavy boosters and stack Starships on top of them. SpaceX also hopes to eventually use them to catch boosters and ships out of midair. A separate arm visible about halfway up in the photo will also be crucial, known as the Starship Quick Disconnect arm. They made a lot of progress. And so this article, I recommend reading this article again from Tesla Roddy. Great article to read about what's going on at Starbase. So, and then they also, they're testing the launch mount. That's the large structure that Super Heavy sits on that will support Super Heavy, hold the booster down during testing, supply it with thousands of tons of propellant. Think about all the propellant that has to go into Super Heavy and it has to go into Starship because they're going to hold a lot more propellant than Falcon 9. I think Falcon 9 is 3 or 4 meters in diameter. This is 9 meters in diameter, which is like, and much taller. So the volume of fuel is much, much higher. And, 29 or 33 engines on Super Heavy versus 9 on Falcon 9, and they're more powerful engines. So huge amount of stuff going on there. But SpaceX completed a test of the launch mount, venting an unknown gas out of the mount. So a lot of great stuff happening. And it was movement of the Super Heavy booster quick disconnect. These are all important steps to being able to make this everything possible. Great stuff. And then one other bit of news, SpaceX Starlink reached an internet download speed record. It surpassed 400 megabits per second. So the connection I'm on right now, the download speed, I think, is up to 200 or 250 megabits per second. In the place where I was making videos before, my download speed was also around 250 megabits per second, and that's fiber. That's fiber to the home. SpaceX is doing Starlink is doing 400 megabits per second wireless. Pretty amazing stuff. This is really cool. And again, just really quick, if you didn't see it, go to SpaceX on YouTube and watch the DART mission. This is a really cool mission. They're sending something out into space, crashing into an asteroid. I thought this is the kind of thing that seems like silly, but this is something that could literally save a billion lives or billions of lives, depending on where some asteroid might hit Earth. So huge deal, very, very exciting. So I want to start with the Patreon Q&A. And before I do that, again, thanks to the Vasa Law Firm in Sweden, all my Patreon supporters. If you support me on Patreon, if you support me on Locals, if you support me on the YouTube channel as a YouTube channel membership, that all helps what I'm trying to do here, which is produce good quality content that you guys want to watch. And if you are a supporter, you may get additional benefits, like I'm going to do a second live stream where I'm going to talk about my Tesla bot model that's coming. And you also get to ask questions that start at the beginning of the Q&A. So this is from Locals Q&A. I didn't understand the first two questions. This is RR Nath. He asked me about med bed treatment for an 80-year-old veteran like me. I didn't understand that. And he asked me about free energy, when and how. I don't understand the med bed treatment question. Free energy, I think, is a concept that ignores reality. I don't think there's any science behind free energy. I don't think that conceivably works. So I don't fully understand the question, but I don't think that's a really viable thing. So then Swirly asks, what's the relationship between JB, that's JB Straubel, and Elon now? JB Straubel was the chief technology officer of Tesla, and he created a company called Redwood Materials, which is going to do battery recycling. He asked, what's the relationship? It sounds like Tesla's building recycling in-house and competing with Redwood Materials, which is JB's company, and also JB is on the board of QuantumScape, which is working on making solid-state batteries. I haven't seen them together. JB left. He put a lot of quality time into Tesla. He did a lot of great work. So my general sense is that Elon usually gets along well with people that he's worked with in the past, especially if they've worked with him a long time. Elon seems to get along well with the PayPal mafia, who often fund his ventures or help, chip in funding on his ventures, and he lets them participate in his ventures. So I think my guess would be that they get along fine. Tesla's building recycling in-house. If Redwood Materials comes up with a better way of recycling battery materials, I'm sure that Tesla will use the best option available. And I'm sure JB has, hundreds of millions of dollars that he's made in Tesla stock, and he'll be just fine. As far as QuantumScape goes, hey, they're taking a shot at advanced battery technology. I don't think they're going to make it, but I wish them all the luck in the world, because we need better battery technology, and they're taking a swing. You got to appreciate people taking a swing. I doubt that Elon is, if they succeed in making better batteries, then Tesla will buy them. I don't think Tesla cares. I don't think Elon cares. If you're making better batteries and they're going to cost us less money, they're going to have more energy density, then they'll put them in Tesla Semi, which is really sensitive to battery weight. So it's great stuff. There was another question that came very late, just not too long before the video. Dave to Dave said, can you give details about your solar home venture? Will you go full on Elon and install Powerwall, Starlink, destination chargers, and maybe even a HEPA filter for ventilation? How will the cost of renting or buying it compare to other similar homes? Okay, so first of all, the idea is solar farm apartments. Thank you for this question. I love this question. The idea is I call it solar farm apartments. The idea is basically it's a triangle. It's a triangle, and the roof is 46 feet long. The floor is 40 feet long, and the roof is all solar panels. And basically, on a roughly 800 square foot apartment, you get 18 kilowatts of solar generation, solar panels. Put 1,000 of them in a complex, then you're generating 18 megawatts. You have an 18 megawatt solar power plant. Now, if you can make the apartment use efficient, then you're generating a lot of excess electricity that can either feed the grid, or my current vision of it is serve the robo-taxi network you're going to run out of the same complex that gives people rides from the complex and does other rides and makes money as robo-taxis. The plan is definitely, it would probably be megapack. The idea for the larger scale solar farm apartments is that there would be enough of them to support, enough of them you would need megapacks to support the amount of electricity being produced, rather than just power walls. If it's a small scale setup where we're only building 10 or 20 apartments, then yeah, we would probably go with power walls. But the goal is to build something big enough, because if you build it at scale, then your cost of building it is less on a per unit basis, and you're able to rent out the apartments for less on a per unit basis. The plan is not to sell these. The plan is just build them and own them, possibly build them for other landlords. I suppose we would consider selling them to people who wanted to buy them, but I'm not sure how that would work. And the goal here, the target price I have in mind for renting them is $800 a month. I did some napkin math, and I think $800 a month would be plenty of rent revenue for the purpose, for what for the concept, and that's roughly half of what a lot of people are paying for comparable apartments. And we're going to sell them electricity we can't give the electricity away for free, because then they would use too much, and you want to conserve electricity in use in the apartments so that you can use more of the electricity for selling it to the grid, or ideally powering a robo-taxi network, or condensing water out of the air so you have water supply. There's a lot of different ways we might use that extra electricity. But you don't want it to just use all the electricity. If somebody has free electricity, then they're going to start Bitcoin mining in their apartment, using them as much electricity as they can, and that's not really a solution. So you have to have some pricing on the electricity. Originally, I was thinking electricity would be free, and I realized that's not going to work. Definitely plan to have Starlink. The general idea is that these are going to be off-grid, which is why you're probably not going to serve electricity to the grid as the first option. It's going to be off-grid because it'll be easier to get land cheaper, and it'll be easier to provide large numbers of apartments at low cost. Probably doing this outside Austin, Texas in the long run. So if you're off-grid, then you're not going to have broadband internet by wire. So Starlink makes a lot of sense, and you could probably share Starlink, especially if we're doing 400 megabit per second downloads. You could probably share one Starlink over 4 or even 5 or 6 units. And that way you're able to sustain, because if you have too many Starlinks in one spot, it might not work. So if you have 1,000 units and you have 200 Starlinks on the property, or 100 Starlinks on the property, that may be enough to serve everyone. My gut guess is that most of the people who are living in these apartments are not going to need more than, say, 50 megabit per second download, because it's typically going to be 1 or 2 people in the apartment. And typically people, if you're streaming 2 different videos, each video is around 20 megabits per second. So 2 video streams would be 40 megabits per second. So you're probably not going to need 40 megabits download for most uses. So that would be enough for 50 users per Starlink. So I haven't figured out the math on how we make the Starlink setup work, but I think it's 20 users per Starlink, I think. And then Starlink may get faster. Destination chargers. The vision I have is that the residents of the solar farm apartments don't bother owning cars. That the reason they're living there is they're trying to save money. And we're going to have a robo-taxi network that runs out of the solar farm apartment complex. This is all like Warren's fantasy about how it's going to work, right? That doesn't mean I'm right. We would be charging our robo-taxis using the solar power. I imagine some people would choose to own vehicles and we would have charging available for them, but that's not, the principal idea is let's make it so inexpensive. Let's get their cost of living so low. So imagine you're working at the Tesla Gigafactory. You're working 15 hours a day or 12 hours a day. You don't really have time to enjoy having a large and expensive and fancy apartment. You just want a place you can go crash. The vision is, and that way you're able to save more money and buy more Tesla stock. You know, in my mind, young people who are working really long should be working long hours and saving money and investing. And the less money you spend on your apartment, the less money you spend on transportation, the more money you have that you can save and invest. So that's sort of the rough vision. You know, we're probably going to have some amenities like a swimming pool or whatever, shooting range. It's in Texas. Something for people to do when they decide they want to do something in the neighborhood. Comfortable, low-cost way of living that really saves people a lot of money, because housing and transportation is such a big part of a lot of people's budget. And especially, you know, there's people working at the Tesla Gigafactory, they're making a lot of money. But what about the people who are working at Starbucks? You know, what about people who are living on $15 an hour? Can we give them a reasonably low cost of living and create a place where they're comfortable, that's advanced tech, that, you know, sustainable energy, all of that? And honestly, people like this idea better. When I talk to people, they like this idea better than the pod car. So I'm excited about that. All right, let me move on here. Says, would love to hear my thoughts on the fact that Lucid, along with Rivian, have now made deliveries, yet you can't find any customers reviewing their personal experience with Lucid Car yet. I have a lot of thoughts about this. Number one, with Rivian, I believe almost all of the deliveries went to employees who are probably not free to talk about their experience. I don't know when they're going to deliver vehicles to non-employees. I think they may have delivered one or two to non-employees. With Lucid, yeah, it's kind of mysterious. And I think it is suspicious that we're not seeing customer reviews of Lucid. There is a Clubhouse event coming up in the Tesla Universe group where one of the buyers of a Lucid Air, who is a Tesla Club president, I think. So a lot of the Lucid buyers are Tesla fans, by the way. People think that because I'm a Tesla fan, I'm trashing Lucid. Well, most of the Lucid buyers are Tesla buyers. They're fans too. So it doesn't really make sense. But I just wanted to touch on this really quick, that I pointed out that in Lucid's filing with the EPA, they said they had a 924 volt, 150 amp hour architecture, which works out to 138.6 kilowatt hour battery pack. And people said, no, that's peak voltage. They're only using, 800 volts or whatever is nominal, and that's how you're supposed to calculate it. Here is Peter Rawlinson at an event. This is from the Lucid website, the Lucid Investor Relations website, bragging that they're using an ultra high voltage architecture over 900 volts. Tesla uses a 400 volt system. Tesla's nominal voltage is around 400 volts. And comparing it to Porsche's at 800 volts, maybe it's just marketing, but you can't claim you're over 900 volts and then say, oh, we're only using 800. And, you can see it here. This is their EPA filing where the total voltage of the battery packs was 924 and the battery energy capacity, which is amp hours, 150. You multiply those two numbers, you get 138,600, 138.6 kilowatt hours. And this is in their filing that they said their nominal voltage was 924 volts. They submitted a later filing that reduced this number to 800, but it's not my fault that Lucid lies and misleads and changes their story constantly. And to blame me for Lucid changing their story, this is what the Lucid trolls are doing, and it makes me laugh. Next question from Stephen Hansen. He's joining the Daily Life supporters. Thank you very much. I don't know if there's a question in here. Well, anyway, thank you for your comment, Stephen, and thank you for supporting the channel. For those who don't know, the main point of this channel is for me to talk about politics that I can't talk about on YouTube or Patreon because of censorship. So there's a lot of things I talk about I can't talk about there. So that's why, and I do talk about the Constitution quite a bit. I'm a libertarian. I'm not a Republican. I'm actually a registered Democrat, but I'm a libertarian. And I talk about liberty and freedom and Constitution and things like that. And I talk about how the media is lying to us. Well, Nurse says, do I think Tesla can achieve 50% auto gross margins, excluding FSD, in the next 2 to 3 years? I have heard that they're achieving more than 50% auto gross margins on Model Y in Shanghai already. I think the number I heard was 55%. I don't think they will get over 50% gross margins in Fremont on Model 3 or Model Y soon, because Fremont is a very expensive place to produce cars. I do think there's potential for Giga Berlin and Giga Texas to exceed 50% auto gross margins. And a lot of that depends on what price are they selling the vehicles at, what happens in the supply chain to affect costs. Elon has said they're getting a lot of short-term inflationary pressures. There's a lot of different things going on there. But yeah, I think that they may very well achieve. They're already doing it with at least Shanghai Model Y. So I do think that we're likely to see that. Also, their transportation costs and tariff costs are going to go down once Giga Berlin is producing locally for the European market. Though, as that grows and they stop shipping vehicles from China or Fremont to Europe, then their shipping costs go down and their tariff costs go down. So their gross margins go up for that as well. Will also asks, have I got to test out 10.5 much? That's FSD beta 10.5, and what are your thoughts on it? He said, I've heard that F10.5 feels like a bigger rate of improvement compared to prior releases. I don't always notice a huge difference. One thing is because I drive it daily, I drive it all the time. Okay, I drive FSD beta every day, and it's really hard to notice differences from one iteration to the next. I feel like I notice differences, but it's not really clear that I'm seeing something, that I'm getting it right. So I would say no, I haven't noticed that 10.5 is a bigger rate of improvement compared to prior releases. But I did just drive this morning. I drove my daughter to the airport. One intervention. This is 20-mile drive, 25-mile drive. One intervention which was really a nav intervention, that the car didn't make the turn from the main highway to the ramp to the airport. I don't know why it didn't do it. It normally would make that move, and for some reason it didn't make that move, so I had to correct and disengage there. Going back, I went to a supercharger just to top up a little bit. The price of this particular supercharger, Florida Turnpike, Pompano Beach, before 10 a.m. is only 19 cents a kilowatt hour, so a little cheaper to charge in my garage, but nowhere near as fast, so I stopped and pumped in, I don't know, 10, 20 kilowatt hours. And it was like $4 or something. I forget how much. It wasn't much money. I think it was 0 interventions from the airport to the supercharger, except once I got off the ramp, it started driving really slow on the way into the supercharger, and the nav gave it the wrong directions to get to the supercharger. So I feel like a lot of interventions are nav related rather than FSD beta related. If the nav is telling it to go the wrong way, then it's going to lead to bizarre behavior. So, and then on the way home, I think I had one intervention on the way home. And I always said, just to be clear, I don't start in the garage, right? I get a certain distance out and then I turn FSD beta on. FSD beta does not handle the gates in my neighborhoods, the current neighborhood where I live and the neighborhood where my wife and kid live. Doesn't handle those gates well yet, so I don't bother using FSD beta for the gates. So those would qualify as interventions. And then I'm not necessarily counting when you step on the accelerator pedal to get it going when it doesn't want to go or it's not sure it can go. So I think technically those should count as interventions, and you do those almost subconsciously, so it's hard to count them. But do I feel like it's better? It's hard. I think it's really hard for an individual to experience that. I think there's a lot of things that are getting better, and it's really like over 5 or 10 iterations you're going to notice big differences. Steve asks, do I ever think Tesla will do massive solar farms in the desert? If so, will power be sent back through a bored tunnel? Elon used to mention 100 by 100 miles of solar, 1 by 1 miles of battery would power the entire USA. He actually just said this. I think it was 150 kilometers or 200 kilometers on the side, he said. He didn't talk about the batteries in that when he was talking to the space conference. I think it's possible that Tesla will do massive solar farms in the desert. I don't know that Tesla wants to be in the business of running solar farms. That's not their goal. I think that there will be solar farms in the desert, and Tesla might supply the mega packs to those solar farms. I don't think that's the business that Tesla wants to be in. Anybody can set up a solar farm. I don't think Tesla has a particular advantage in setting up solar farms, and others can do it. Tesla's big advantage would be supplying mega packs. I don't think power would be sent back through a bored tunnel, at least not most of the way, because in the desert, you don't need to bore a tunnel. You just run the power on land. It's a desert. There's no competing use for the space. So you wouldn't bother boring a tunnel. You would just make a secure power line running on towers, maybe. I think boring a tunnel would be an expensive way to do that. At some point on the way back, when you hit populated areas, you might do a boring tunnel then. But you don't want to run a boring tunnel where you don't need to. That's my take on it. If there's weather reasons where you want to be underground, so if you're up in the Arctic, let's say, if you were in Alaska going to the Bering Strait for my boring idea, then you would go underground to avoid winter. It's necessary in a desert. I could be wrong. CG Mail says, what are my thoughts on 12.9? This is a popular thing that people are talking about, that something particular is happening on December 9th because Elon has made some tweets that people are interpreting as something special is happening on December 9th. There's a theory that Tesla is going to have a stock split on December 9. I do not care about stock splits. I'm a buy on hold investor, and the difference between Tesla being $1,000 a share and $200 a share is not a big deal to me. I understand for small retail investors, there's an idea that it makes a lot of sense for small retail investors. So will they do a stock split on December 9th? I don't know. I really don't care. Is something else happening on December 9th? I doubt it. I mean, when Elon suggests dates, they usually don't happen anyway, or they happen 2 weeks later anyway. So I just don't put a lot of weight in that. And Yanessa asked, does a full battery weigh the same as a discharged battery? Yes. The mass in the battery goes from cathode to anode and anode to cathode. It doesn't leave the battery. As far as I know, the battery weight does not change when you discharge that. I've heard that if there is a change in mass, it's extremely trivial. It's extremely small. But I have not heard that yet. That my impression is the ions move from the cathode to the anode, and then they move back from the anode to the cathode. So there's nothing is leaving the battery, so the mass wouldn't have anywhere to go. And then before I go in, I think I mentioned this earlier, Mickey was critical of me. First, the move to locals, now making stuff for Patreons only. This is the beginning of the end of this channel. It happens with most YouTubers. Hey, look, Stephen Mark Ryan does a lot more than I do, and I love Stephen Mark Ryan, and his channel hasn't ended. And he's basically criticizing me for trying to make some money from what I'm doing. And I just responded here. The shift to locals was primarily for political content, and I only shifted the live streams over here because I tested it over here and I didn't really like it, but then YouTube kept demonetizing my live streams. And I've had conversations with them, and they're doing it to other YouTubers, and it's very, very frustrating, and it makes it so that I don't feel like I can speak freely while doing my live streams. And I lose money. They're going to demonetize my live stream. One time they demonetized my live stream for over 24 hours. I'm always right. They always monetize it in the end, but I can lose like 24 hours, which most of the revenue is in the first 24 hours. So it gets very frustrating, and I can't speak freely. It's very frustrating. I don't like the threat of censorship. Locals is a free speech platform, so what the heck, I'm going to do it here. If YouTube comes around and figures out, okay, we're going to stop demonetizing you because you've had 50 live streams in a row that we ended up realizing were correct and shouldn't have been demonetized, if they get to that point and say, hey, because I do that with my edited videos. I can self-certify my edited videos because most of my videos are still going to be on. This is the other thing. Most of my content's still on YouTube. Most of my videos are still on YouTube. The stuff related to Elon and Tesla and SpaceX, Boring and Neuralink, those videos are all still on YouTube. But those, I can self-certify this as clean content, and they get monetized right away. So they offer that to me there, and just the way they handle the demonetization is very, very frustrating. But the other thing I just wanted to say was, he's basically critical of me for trying to make money from my work. And it's always nice to see people who expect others to work for free. I'm sure that Mickey works for free, right? I mean, anytime I see somebody complaining that somebody is actually trying to make money from their work, when people are critical of a YouTuber who's trying to sell t-shirts, elonbits.com for the t-shirts, somebody who talks about Patreon support, hey, I want to, somebody who's critical of Patreon support. I really appreciate the Patreon supporters, the local supporters, the YouTube channel members. I appreciate everybody for supporting me in all these different ways. You're helping me pay for this space, and you're helping me pay for my kids' college. I do have a lot of money in Tesla stock, but it's all in IRAs, and I can't touch it for 5 years, I think, and I'm not planning on touching it for 10 years. So this money helps. It helps me get through life. Although I'm wealthy, my wealth is tied up and I can't touch it, mostly. And, I don't want to live off my wealth. I want my wealth to grow. So I'm making reasonably good money in this business. I'm going to keep going. What questions or comments we have in the chat? Dave to Dave says you do incredible amounts of work for us. I think besides that, it's a free speech platform. $5 a month is nothing for the value you provide. Thank you, Dave. I honestly, I do the live streams because I make more money making regular videos. I do the live streams because I like doing them. I like the interaction. I like that we actually have an interactive chat right now. I solicited more comments from YouTube, Patreon, and tried to get more advanced comments because I think the reviewing comments and commenting them is actually more fun for me and it makes for a better video. So, but thank you, Dave. It is a lot of work, by the way. I spent, 3 hours this morning before the live stream getting ready for I usually spend 3 hours getting ready for the live stream. And then usually my live streams go more than 2 hours. This one's going to be an hour. I'm experimenting with different approaches. So this one's going to be an hour. And then I'm going to do a separate live stream for supporters where I talk about my Tesla bot model. Victor Block says, I cannot see $800 a month rent as being economically viable. The limited unit size to $800 a square feet. Cost can easily be $200 a square foot. Well, this is the point, Victor. The point is to design the structure so it's less expensive to build. You saying, let's say you can do it cheaper than you finance $120,000 of each unit. No, the goal, this is the same thing with the pod car. The goal is how inexpensively can we build a unit? The idea is, and listen, maybe I'm wrong. This is the thing. I'm going to invest my money paying engineers to come up with models of how to build these things. We're going to build them off grid so the land is cheaper. we're going to, one of the things that somebody asked me about the solar farm before. Dave asked me before about, I forgot to mention that one of the things we're going to do is we're going to use incinerator toilets instead of regular toilets. And incinerator toilets mean we don't have to do all the plumbing to get what's called the black water. The stuff that goes in the toilet is called black water, and you have to dispose of that in a different way than you dispose of the shower water or the kitchen sink water. So if we eliminate some plumbing under each unit, and we eliminate the black water issue of how you're going to treat the sewage, because if you're off grid, you're not going to tap into a municipal sewer system. A lot of Texas, a lot of Florida, frankly, there's a lot of places where you can't tap into a municipal sewer system. So it can be kind of expensive to set up sewage treatment. So if we use incinerator toilets, we're saving money. So the goal is to really, really radically reduce the cost of building these units and build them at scale, build them at large volume. And that way we can get the cost down to less money and be able to, and the best wall is no wall. It's a triangle shape. It's a triangle shape. So there's one less wall. The best wall is no wall. The best part is no part. Can we make these simpler? Can we make them cheaper? Can we design them in an efficient way? This is the goal. I'm not saying we're going to succeed. We're going to try. I'm going to risk my money. I'm probably going to spend $50,000 building a prototype, maybe $100,000 building a prototype. I might move and live in this prototype, so this is serious. And I think we can get the rents down to $800 a month, still make money, while providing a really good experience for residents. So that's the goal. This is one of my frustrations when I look at the world. Like, I'm renting this place for about $1,550 a month. And actually, it's actually a pretty good deal for this place, but it's pretty common for people to pay $1,500 a month for an apartment. And honestly, a space like this might be worth $2,000 a month. And you see a lot of apartments. I saw an apartment that was like $1,450 a month that was really crappy, just really awful. Can we make something that's new? Can we make something that's environmentally sound? And the revenue generated by the solar support us being able to lower the rent. It's not necessarily about can we make a lot of money from building apartments. It's can we build something? Can we build a model that works to make a solar apartment setup work and be able to provide local. And it's not affordable housing. There's terms in American law, affordable housing and low-income housing. It's neither of those two because those are federal programs that there's strings attached. I talked before about subsidies and the strings attached. I want no strings attached, so I want to be able to do it my way. And so I think a lot of the things you're talking about, and once you get a viable setup and you build your first 10, then you self-finance. You don't borrow to finance them, you self-finance, or you do funding rounds and you raise money from investors rather than borrowing at high interest rates. Because you're talking about borrowing at 3.7%. I don't want to borrow at 3.7%. I want to invest my own money and then make a return on my money. So, I mean, maybe it makes sense to borrow money and then be able to build at larger scale or find investors. But the whole point is let's get the prototype built and see, can we find an efficient way to make these at larger scale? You can see like Boxable and Sonderpods and others working on these sort of like manufactured homes idea. I think doing panelized construction so you get these things to difficult off-grid locations might make a lot of sense. Carl Stockmal, who is a moderator on the YouTube channel, says Ford's E150 Lightning seems to care not at all about efficiency, big box, big battery. Yeah, I don't know enough about the E150 Lightning, but I don't think it works. Says, Warren, do you use nav on autopilot when using FSD beta? I don't really know, Mark. I mean, I use FSD beta, and I think nav on autopilot is something that people who don't have FSD beta use. But when you're on an interstate highway, I believe it switches automatically to nav on autopilot. The FSD beta stack does not operate in nav on autopilot, and the user interface changes. And I actually don't know what happens in a parking lot. That may be a different stack, or that may be FSD beta stack now. It's not a 10 by 14 foot solar roof. It is a 46 foot long by 21 foot wide solar panel is the idea. The apartments will be 40 feet long on the ground floor, 24 foot high wall, 46 foot long roof. There's a main area, the first so many feet are not really livable space, but maybe there'll be a closet. And then there's about 550 square feet then there's 21 feet wide per apartment. I'll probably bend a little bit on this, but about 550 square feet on the ground floor and 250 square feet on a loft area. You probably sleep in the loft and have the living area downstairs. I think I can actually stretch the loft to get more like 300 square feet. And maybe that allows me to make the unit 20 feet wide instead of 21 feet wide. I haven't figured all that out yet. I'm going to hire some engineers or architects and try to put together a design. Melody got an email. Starlink won't be shipped until mid-2022. Hopefully they're going to scale production of Starlink and they'll make progress on that. Let's see. Donors have more influence than voters, that's for sure. Rent out solar-powered RVs. I have thought, we talked about doing an RV park at Starbase. A solar-powered RV park at Starbase. There are already RV parks, not at Starbase, near Starbase. Rocket Ranch is already an RV park slash Airbnb space that's near Starbase. The one we were talking about doing was buying land that's closer to the airport, that's outside the border control area. So you'd be like a half-hour drive from Starbase and 5 or 10 minute drive from most of the population and a 30-minute drive from South Padre Island. So that's kind of an interesting idea. You don't want the solar farm apartments at sea level. Brownsville is almost all at sea level. So the vision I have for the solar farm apartments is they're not going to work really well on land that might flood. And maybe I have to rethink that. And lands that are exposed to high winds. I think they might be really good in high wind because there's one less wall for the wind to grab. So I haven't figured that out yet. That's one of the things I got to talk to engineers and architects about. Melody says maybe 2 apartments can be turned into a mini grocery store. I have a lot of ideas for how you can use the structure, right? The structure is initially designed to be an apartment, but there's a lot of other things you could use it for. You might have a clubhouse in space that's in one of the structures. You can have a bar in there. There's all kinds of things you could do in there. I mean, you think about that lofted idea, and you'd put 2 units together, and you could have an upstairs. The DJ's upstairs, and the people are dancing downstairs. There's all kinds of great ideas that you can fun you can have with it. The big thing is, can you get the cost of manufacturing and building the units down, and can you make them efficient to build at low cost? That's the big hurdle. One of the things I was thinking about doing was, can we do it without concrete? And everything I'm hearing, just do concrete. Concrete might be hard to pour in some off-grid locations, but it looks like we're just going to do concrete. Yeah, canceling Patreon to move here is great. I really appreciate that. I don't have a strong preference one way or the other. Giga Shanghai has dorms, and that's one of the things I was talking to Anwar Beck, I think, about the idea. And this is the thing: if I get it working and it's good, then I could see, Anwar Beck thought, that sounds like something Elon would like for housing for the gigafactories or for Starbase. So, the goal is, I'm making a lot of progress on pod car engineering. I think we're going to have final engineering of the chassis a week or 2. Then we're going to move to powertrain engineering. We're probably going to go back and redesign chassis after we do the powertrain engineering. But I should, hopefully in December, I'm hoping to form 2 corporations, maybe January, one for the pod car, one for the solar farm apartments. Once the corporations are formed, then I'm going to go and start the engineering, looking for engineers to help design the solar farm apartments. Mix concrete on site. Yeah, I don't know how to. I'll figure out that later. Boring company bricks. I don't think the boring company bricks are going to work for this project, but I won't rule it out. I'd be interested to see how that would work. Buy Tesla before December 9th. That's an interesting theory. Okay. Oh, really quick. Check out the t-shirts at elonbits.com. We are still in my Black Friday window. So if you go to elonbits.com and use promo code BLF4, Black Friday, BLF4, you get $4 off any merch, including the stainless steel water bottle and the t-shirts. What's Outside the Simulation is one of my favorite t-shirts. Really popular right now. I have a new Cybertruck t-shirt, CYBRTRK. And I have the Tesla and Air shirt and the Cybertruck shirt are both selling like crazy, $4 off. This is a premium. What is it called? This is the premium t-shirt. There's also a tri-blend t-shirt. I waver which one I like better. Lately, I've liked the tri-blend better. The tri-blend costs $1 more. I actually make more profit. I don't make a lot of profit on any of this, but I make more profit on the classic t-shirts than I make on the premium and the tri-blends. They just cost more, but I sell them at less profit. Just I really like them, and it just works out the pricing. But this is a premium textured shirt. I don't know. I think it depends. So I would encourage, if you like that stuff, please check it out. When can we expect to see the first real-life prototype of the pod car? So if we finish chassis engineering this in the next couple of weeks, we do powertrain engineering. I think powertrain engineering is going to happen quicker. I think the approach I'm going to use for future engineering is going to be faster. I figured out we need to do engineering faster. We got to innovate with more urgency. Oh, thank you, Alexandra. Chag Sameach. Lashana, no, not Lashana Tova. Chag Sameach. Happy Hanukkah to those who celebrate such holidays, and a Festivus for the rest of us. My family does celebrate Hanukkah. I'm not into holidays myself. So get the powertrain engineering done. I'm going to try to accelerate the engineering and get engineering to start happening faster. That's going to be a priority moving forward. I'm not happy with how slow the engineering has been. Probably redo the chassis engineering after we have the powertrain engineering done. I've got a little better sense of what I want for the engineering. I have a vision now, because I don't have the engineering chops, but I now have a vision for how we can make the pod car really effective and really simple and really cheap to build. Hopefully we will have powertrain engineering and then re-chassis engineering done February, March maybe, and then have a pod car April, May, June, have a prototype built by June, let's say. I'd like to make it sooner, but there's really no hurry, because the pod car is only viable when self-driving is real and available and reasonably cost to license. So I don't think the pod car is actually going to be viable as a commercial product until late 23, early 24. Because even though I think the robotaxi network starts in late 22, early 2023, I don't think it'll be available. And the pod car is pretty much intended for third world countries, poor countries. Not to say that there won't be uses in richer countries, but the primary goal is to serve countries that really need that low cost transportation that pod car will provide. And I don't think robotaxi will be as available in India, let's say, as early as it'll be available in the United States. So as long as we start being able to produce pod cars in some volume by, let's say, late 2023, we're doing okay. So a prototype in June of 2022 is a pretty good start. And then, you know, hopefully we get down the manufacturing in 2023 and we're able to produce in significant volume. And hopefully along the way, Tesla stock keeps going up and I'm able to finance, probably borrowing and taking money out of the IRA. I'm able to self-finance, or at some point we may do a crowdfunding round. And I do have visions of doing crowdfunding rounds for both of these, and I'm getting more excited about that prospect. So I will be talking about that. The crowdfunding rounds, when I do that, that will go to Patreon supporters, YouTube channel exclusive content members, and local supporters first. They'll get first notice of that. I have an investor email list. They'll get notice of it probably after. And of course, I'll talk about it on the YouTube channel as well. So we've done about an hour. I want to thank everyone for coming. I thank the supporters. So what's going to happen now is I'm going to end this stream and I'm going to start a new stream and this recording will be made available on YouTube probably tomorrow. I'm going to stop this stream shortly. It's recording right now, so the recording will stop. And then I'm going to start a new stream that's going to be for locals channel supporters only. I'm going to record that. I'm going to make that available for Patreon supporters and YouTube channel exclusive content members as well. It'll be available for them later today. So if you join the channel, I'd appreciate it. Thank you, everyone, for watching. If I heard anything about Tesla ending delivery waves. Yes. Elon sent an email talking about he wants to stop delivery waves. So I'm stopping this video now. Thanks, everyone, for watching. And if you're a supporter, please check out the next live stream starting shortly.